their own hydrophone flavor, so make sure to double check. To use it, you must be at periscope depth or deeper, as it won't work if you are on the surface. Then activate the consumable if you want to find an unspotted ship nearby. Keep in mind that it will only highlight surface ship and submarines on periscope depth. It cannot highlight a submerged submarine. Those are reserved for submarine surveillance in the next segment. Perhaps one of the best use of hydrophone is lining up a shotgun from underwater without raising any red flag for the enemy, and while also avoiding their hydroacoustic surge that works in conjunction with a certain skill. Remember this thing, so the next time you fell victim to a shotgun, 9 out of 10 times is because the submarine has the superior intel. As the name suggests, this consumable is for detecting submarines. The way it works is physically detecting a submerged submarine within its search range and make it visible for a whole minute to everyone. However, it will not detect a submarine that is on the surface. A key thing to remember, if you want to engage it, this is the consumable to use to take down other submarine, usually against those who overextend, giving you and the team a real chance at killing it. This consumable is available on all submarines except for the I-56 and has a long preparation time, most likely to prevent 2 submarines killing each other early in the game. Good intuition is needed to use this consumable, as just like radar and hydrophone, it can provide a completely one-sided result, but exclusively against submarines. Since submarines are physically small and hard to hit, the game implemented a splash damage mechanic exclusively to them. They have an imaginary hitbox around the ship. If a shell landed within said hitbox, it will damage the submarine, but with reduced damage. For HE and SAP shells, it's roughly half the normal penetration damage. For example, a 120mm HE shell with 1750 alpha has 578 penetration damage, but a splash damage to a submarine will only do 289 damage. The same math applies to SAP. But because SAP has a much bigger alpha than HE, it's much more effective at killing submarines. Although remember that low caliber SAP can still bounce. However, for AP shells, it will only do overpen damage, which are mostly lower than HE or SAP, making it the worst shell to use against submarines. There is one interesting work on splash damage. While submarines have damage saturation just like other ships, it does not affect the damage taken from splash damage. So if a submarine is physically saturated already, it will die faster from splash damage instead of a direct hit. Once a submarine got down to periscope depth, it's gonna be splash damage only, and when fully submerged it can no longer be damaged by shells. Now we move on to other armaments. First up, rockets and bombs. Long story short, with exception of a direct hit, it will not damage a submarine, pretty much ignored by the splash damage hitbox, so a submarine can stay in periscope depth and be invulnerable to carrier attack. However, not all bombs are created equal. Such example would be bombs from Dutch airstrike. Not only it has ridiculous alpha, it also does splash damage, basically allowing them to clap the submarine that didn't pay attention. And of course we all know about aerial depth charge bombs. They have a bigger blast radius than normal shells, and able to do a direct hit, dealing full damage, and half damage if it splashes. At its furthest distance it will only deal incapacitations, like breaking modules and causing floodings. By the way, going deeper does not protect a submarine from any kind of depth charge, including ship drop depth charge. It will damage it the same way as if it was on the surface, but this is for gameplay purposes. All these ways to damage a submarine have something in common. It will almost always cause the submarine to leak its fuel, giving away its position. More on this in the next segment. But what about torpedoes? Like a destroyer, they can be hit with conventional torpedoes, but they cannot be damaged by any deep water ones, despite able to physically go underwater. Again, this is not my decision to make, so please consult the balancing department. However, you can still hit a submarine superstructure when it's at periscope depth with conventional torpedoes, although you'll probably wasted all your luck for this to happen.
Google Fi Wireless is making it simple and risk-free to see if it's right for you. Get our free 7-day trial. It works alongside your current plan, so you can test our coverage at home, at work, or anywhere you need to stay connected. Get unlimited data, calls, and texts in the US with hotspot tethering, VPN, and spam blocking. You'll automatically renew after 7 days and can cancel anytime. Start your free trial with Google Fi Wireless today.
This is how AG1 works to upgrade your health routine by combining many quality ingredients into something powerfully simple. It's time to get foundational nutrition at drinkag1.com.
Anytime a submarine receives any kind of damage, it will cause a fuel leak. This icon will appear on the bottom along with this text, which indicates that a fuel leak is imminent. Then followed by a second icon and text that indicates the actual fuel leak, plus a visual showing them leaking from the submarine. It does no damage over time and lasted 40 seconds, but it's a big deal because it left a big black splotch on the water visible for everyone. This splotch of fuel spawns every few seconds on top of the submarine to reveal its position, and overlaps with the previous one. The gap between splotches and where they spawn is the most absolute way to find where the submarine is going and predict where to drop depth charges. To fix this fuel leak, a submarine must use its damage control and lose a charge, or go to the surface and risk being spotted by the enemy. Two very critical tactical choice which I will cover in the damage control user segment. Now for the part we've all been waiting for, the reasons why submarines are hated by everyone. Let's start with sonar. It takes the first armament slot. The way it works is it shoots a pulse towards an enemy ship, often referred as a ping. When this ping contacts the hull of an enemy ship, it flags that hull section to be intercepted by homing torpedoes. Highlighted as light yellow color, a pinged hull section will stay active for 25 seconds, and homing torpedoes will actively seek that hull section, taking enemy ship speed and heading into account as well, and shown with this green homing lines, all within the ping duration, until the torpedo is out of range, or until it's within homing torpedo's cut-off distance. Torpedo cut-off distance is the distance at which homing torpedo stops homing at a ship. This distance is different for each ship type, submarine tier, and even down to sub-specific values, with battleships having the furthest distance, and fellow submarines having the shortest. When the green homing lines is no longer visible, you know that the torpedo has reached that cut-off distance and would no longer track the pinged section. You can also manually disable concurrent homing by pressing G on the keyboard, which will also remove the ping. Now back to that cut-off distance value. Notice the second value on the right column. This is applied when the ship is double pinged, where the same hull section is pinged twice, highlighted with a bright yellow color, and lasted for a whole minute. This time not only the cut-off distance becomes shorter, it also makes the homing torpedo's turns better. While it is not clear how much better it homes with a double ping, it can be observed turning a lot stronger, and I calculate that using the in-game compass. So what about the homing torpedoes themselves? They are characterized by having very high speed, low damage, and have higher detectability than normal torpedoes. And it appears that slower homing torpedoes have better turning capabilities, at least judging from this clip of the slowest homing torpedoes in the game so far. I mean, logically it would make sense, but I have no hard data on what is essentially homing torpedoes turning circle. They can still be fired normally without a sonar ping, just like normal torpedoes. Very useful against clueless enemies, and can also be fired from underwater. However, it needs an active ping to hit surface ships, otherwise it will just pass through underneath the ship. This brings us nicely to sonar and homing torpedoes behavior from underwater. When fully submerged, you can aim sonar at any direction, and it will travel in a straight line. But once it hits the surface, it will only travel for a short distance before disappearing. So to ping a ship from underwater, the submarine must ping directly at the hull, or within proximity of it. The homing torpedoes will then raise to the surface and do their things, such as hitting ships that doesn't have plane depth charges. The same can be done against submerged submarine as well. This time the torpedoes will basically fly underwater, although aiming the sonar in 3 dimension will take some practice. One thing is for certain, anytime a submarine uses a ping, it will spawn this crescent on the surface that indicates their location. But unlike fuel leaving, it works in a more special way, and it will be explained in a depth charge user segment.
And I have to surface, which means it's going to light me up.
Attention Patriots, discover what's inside your free outdoor mystery box. This exclusive offer is just for you. Act now. We are giving these outdoor mystery boxes for free. I mean, just take a look at these night vision goggles, mini chainsaw, shoulder bag. This mystery box could have it all. This offer is for today only. Visit the next page and claim your free survival mystery box. This isn't your typical giveaway. We want to see who actually takes advantage of these offers. Stocks are super low, and this offer is for today only. Just cover the shipping, and it's yours. Will you get this free mystery box or miss out? Hit the claim now button and get a mystery box on us.
I ain't got a choice. Is he on the backside of that island that you're running at?
The Battle of Stalingrad has begun in Enlisted, the free Second World War online shooter. The latest major update has added a new campaign, the Medic class, flame-throwing tanks, a heap of new weapons, in-depth customization for soldiers and vehicles, the first female squad, and much more. In Enlisted, you control an entire squad of specialized soldiers. At the press of a button, you can switch between any of them seamlessly to stay right in the heat of battle. Download Enlisted for free from the enlisted.net website.
It's supposed to show you just like torpedoes and other stuff.
In addition to homing torpedoes, submarines have conventional torpedoes like those found on normal ships, available from Tier 8. Except for British submarines, they can be selected by double-pressing the third armament option, and it takes a brief moment to switch. These conventional torpedoes are characterized by having slower speed than homing torpedoes, have a much higher alpha, and are just ever so slightly more stealthy. But they have a much longer arming distance compared to homing torpedoes, and cannot be launched from underwater. Something to remember, if you want to torpedo an enemy ship from point-blank range, famously known as shotgunning, which is the main purpose of these torpedoes. Keep in mind that most submarines, except for a select few, has something called torpedo dispersion, which means they would not come out straight from the torpedo tubes, just like a wet spaghetti. This was a measure to reduce the effectiveness of shotgunning, but I don't think it changes anything. More about this in the shotgunning segment.
But no.
Compared to other class, submarines have the least amount of captain skills. Some of them functions the same way as existing skills. Some of them have improved effect. And of course there are submarine specific skills. To save time, I will only go through the most notable one. This is Watchful, and it is perhaps one of the most powerful skill available for a submarine. It works by showing the player if there is a ship detecting consumable active within the vicinity, such as radar, hydro, and submarine surveillance. For example, this submarine is at periscope depth, spotting this radar ship. When that radar ship uses its radar, the submarine will be notified that a spotting consumable is currently within range, so it's probably a bad idea to surface. Another example, this submarine is approaching this cruiser. With Watchful, the submarine can go underwater and check if that cruiser has its hydro active without getting spotted. It can then decide to go balls deep and shotgun, or turn away. As you can see, with a bit of intuition, a submarine can avoid getting spotted by taking this skill, and just like hydrophone, it's very much a one-sided interaction. Another skills worth looking is improved battery efficiency and enlarged propeller shaft. Both are activated when the dive capacity is below 50%. The former provides increased battery recharge when the submarine is on the surface, and the latter increases the submarine speed. This is what allows a submarine to reach upwards of 40 knots. I'm not gonna go through the rest of the skills since they are either mandatory or self-explanatory, and this video is approaching 20 minutes already. Submarines gets their own assortment of upgrades, with choices between improving sonar,